there we go.
Hello?
Hey, you're looking posh today. You've been in court today?
Oh, yes. You
Yeah,
look really nice.
Same here. I've been in court today. You know, it's par for the course, right? We've got to do that from time to time. And we determined what we were going to do a couple of days ago for this. So welcome to Spin Legal. It is May the 5th. So May the 4th be with you from yesterday, and May the 5th be with you today.
May the 4th be with you.
Cinco de Mayo, is that right for today?
Yep.
Cinco de Mayo. Yeah.
That, I didn't really, I just thought that was an expression, but I found out it was actually an anniversary.
Yeah, no, it's an anniversary of something that happened in the Mexican Revolution of fill in the date because I can't remember it.
May the 4th.
Sorry? No, it's way back. It's way back.
Way back,
right?
yeah.
Okay, so to let everybody know, we're talking about conflict within the workplace today.
In the workplace,
and
be spelled.
Wow, good. Look at that. I misspelt it twice. Not just once, but I just misspelled the word conflict twice. That's conflictual, isn't it?
Yeah, conflictual.
All right, so there we go. Here we go. Conflict within the workplace is the topic for today. But to remind everybody that if you need legal advice, you can contact us at Invictus Legal LLP. Call us on 905-688-5598. Email Angela with angela@weareinvictus.legal or myself using peter@weareinvictus.legal. Our website is weareinvictus.legal. There we go. So, as I said, conflict in the workplace is our topic for today. And to start this off, you've got to imagine your two balls going at one another. No, we don't need this in our workplaces here in Ontario. We don't lock horns and fight. It usually leads to the wrong result. Hey, you're out of here and you're out of here, and I'm not hearing any excuses. You're done. That type of thing, right?
Yeah. It's got a fork in it. Done.
Yeah. And that sort of thing, an employer can do that, right?
Yes, the employer has a right to do that because a single incident can justify just cause dismissal.
Yeah. And in fact, actually, exactly. So the whole point about that is that the fact that you've been, you may have been 30 years perfect employee, but the fact that you locked horns and started fighting and left blood all over the workplace, just because you locked horns with somebody, it wasn't worth it. It's not worth losing your job over it, right?
And killing people, then you have to do something with your bodies.
Well, yeah, killing people and end up in the worst of circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's several levels when it comes down to it. There's several levels in dealing with conflict at the workplace. Always is. And we've got to really start at we've got to start at the kind of easiest first. So usually it's about the mildest things that can happen. There was blood left in the workplace.
Oh my God!
There we go. Well, no, I've done situations. I've handled legally situations where there was blood in the workplace. Yes, so yes, it has been the worst of circumstances, and in fact, actually, there was an employer that was trying to actually mediate that long time ago. I thought they couldn't mediate it, but I was proven wrong. My first thought. All right, so
I looked at that and I said, you go, goodbye.
Yeah.
In my 30s, I was very tough. I used to just say, get out of here.
Yeah. Okay, so initially you've got internal informal resolution. So you might go through HR, your manager, etc., and okay, so this is Samuel watching. Okay, so thank you, Samuel. Yeah. Welcome along. All right. Okay, so where are we? Okay, so going back, so you go through HR, your manager, etc. So normally, what will happen is you'll kind of say, "Hey, Mr. Manager, somebody's not being not being nice to me." Explain the circumstances, explain what's going on, and go from there. So the manager.
That conflict can occur at any level. Bullying can occur from any level. People think it's only between a boss and an employee. Many times it can occur from an employee to a boss, could occur between colleagues, could occur between anybody, or even between people who are equals at the top, like if on a board of directors or whatever.
Well, and exactly. One of the biggest problems that we do get in the workplace is bullying, right? So, so it's often easy to push that aside. And, so it's like Joe's mistreating me. He always leaves me doing late night shifts on a Friday, right? He knows that I've got, not only have I got to leave, I need to leave. I've got a train journey to take home to my missus tonight. I won't get there till midnight if he gets me on the 7 o'clock shift on a Friday night. This shift should be given to everybody in rotation. I get it every single time. And by the way, because I got black skin, I think he's being racist to me.
Yeah. And many times even Muslims sometimes get forced to work on Fridays and be pushed into that direction.
That's a very good point, actually.
That's a holy day.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And for Muslims, Friday is a holy day. For Jews, between sunset on Friday and sunset on Saturday is the holy day. And for Christians, a holy day is actually the Sunday. So,
and I've worked with all of them. And the thing is, and I've worked with all the different people with respect of holy days and workplaces and how they coincide. And this is a human rights thing too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And for example,
there is, right now there's something called the Retail Business Holidays Act that you could refuse to work Sundays if you choose to.
Yeah.
Okay? But there's also a human rights code which allows you to be accommodated for a specific religion. So if you're Muslim and you worship on Fridays, okay, that maybe switch shifts and somebody else can do the Friday shifts and then you could take a Saturday shift.
Well, that's more awkward if you're living in a 5-day a week workplace, because those workplaces that are closed Saturday and Sunday, it's a bit more awkward doing that. But
there's sometimes what to be arranged is sometimes people can work a little overtime on a Thursday.
But the worst about that sort of thing is that I've applied, and this is where bullying comes into a large extent. I've applied for vacation. I want every other workplace I've done. I'm a Muslim, and every other workplace I've ever worked in, I've gotten Good Friday off, which is Good Friday is the Friday before the Eid celebration. So I've gotten Good Friday off and I get the Eid celebration off. And this particular manager denies me every time I want that. That type of thing. That's a valid kind of complaint that could be construed as bullying.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that. Like I've had there was one where there was a Jehovah's Witness who was forced to do decorating the store for Christmas. And they said if she refused to do so, she would be terminated. Can't do that. Right? Because people have to be respectful of the person's culture, religion, creed, right? And that sort of thing. There's other people in the workplace who maybe don't share those religious beliefs and may be happy to decorate.
Well, and actually, there was interesting. I had a Muslim friend in the workplace, and talking about Muslims again, who didn't mind contributing to the Christmas celebrations because to him it was just being British. He was a Muslim. He fasted during Ramadan, but he contributed because it's part of the thing that the team did.
Yeah, he's a team player.
Yeah, so he was a team player, and his team went out and they did actually some charity work.
Yeah,
at Christmas time, right? So he was up for that. He was, in fact, he was one of the leaders of making, somebody who'd organized it first of all gave it up, and he picked it up and said, no, we've got to continue doing this. Yeah. Christmas has got nothing to do with his religion, but he felt right with it, right?
Yeah, there's people who will do this sort of thing. And then in terms of conflict in the area, sometimes it's not always based on religion, and may be based on gender identity, could be based on disability, could be based on all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Okay. In some places, the Human Rights Code covers political beliefs. Okay. There's a couple of human rights codes across Canada that do include political beliefs.
Okay. Let's talk about harassment and violence, because obviously this has gotten to the worst end of the area, right? Because violence shouldn't be tolerated in any workplace, and there's usually a complaints procedure, whether your boss is a solo, works for themselves, self-employed, or a huge mega company. There's always, all workplaces have got to have some form of harassment or violence policy. Now, a lot of the time it's just, hey, 911.
Yep. Right? Like there's a zero tolerance for bullying. I have a zero tolerance for bullying because of too much experience with that. And I also have a zero tolerance for yelling and extreme profanity in the workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay? Regardless of how it is targeted, even if it's targeted towards a computer.
Damn,
am I addressing somebody here?
I tell you, computer, do what I mean, not what I say.
Yeah, a certain business partner does that.
All right. So it's important that you consider that your own personal safety in the workplace is vital. Right?
Yep. Psychological and physical safety is important.
Yeah.
And employers need to have policies to establish that safety. It doesn't mean that safety is always going to be there, but when safety is being violated, the employer is put on the hook to act.
Yeah.
Okay, so somebody comes into the workplace and there's his ex-wife or something there that has been gone for several months or whatever, and he finds her there, and then they start arguing. Yeah, the employer can have the person call the police and have the person frog marched out of there.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously in that sort of situation, probably the police is going to give the individual a lecture of the type which is going to be, you are not going to return to this workplace. But if you do, and we're called again, you're going to be under police, there's going to be police rules that you're going to have to obey.
You do a RAR, which would include not even bothering the person, whether they're at their house, whether they're in the workplace or anywhere.
Yeah. And if you proceed beyond that, then we will take you to court.
Yeah, then you could be arrested, charged with some kind of criminal harassment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is very important because this has been happening more and more with people. And sometimes it's very, it's strange. There's people who will harass people by email, by text, that's just as much harassing and psychologically harassing as it is when a person verbalizes.
Yeah. All right. And just to remind everybody, we're talking this week in Spin Legal about conflict within the workplace.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And this is something that becomes a responsibility of the employer. And yes, some people don't like it when the employer tells them, get out.
Yeah.
Right? They don't like it.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, but this is something that has to be done because the employer has to protect the other 99 employees against the one employee that wants to act like an idiot.
Yeah. Okay. And one of the things you've got to also consider, in many workplaces are unionized, And when there are unions involved, the unions have particular grievance procedures, and they are supposed to take part in actually assisting with bullying or stopping violence within the workplace.
Yeah, and this is where a lot of that's education, for people to recognize bullying. Sometimes people don't recognize bullying or harassment. That certain jokes being told around the workplace, and especially if it's unwanted.
Yeah.
And sometimes people invite jokes because they, oh, I'm just an old wop, and they kind of do this because it's a friendly basis. But when it becomes more where a person makes these remarks and they're not welcome,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's when it becomes harassment.
Yeah. And hey, if a person could laugh at themselves, that's fine. But taking the mickey out of somebody else is not acceptable.
Right, exactly.
And
Many ways that this can be, and filing a grievance. If
Yeah.
you're in a union, there is a grievance procedure. You need to file a grievance with the union, and then someone would take it up to a stage up to and including arbitration.
Yeah. And the union has these rules in place for a very good reason, because unions are supposed to be there to protect workers.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And the whole point about that is that unions probably have got a long experience about how to deal with this kind of conflict. And I know everybody talks about unions as being, hey, they're only any good for ensuring that unionized workers get overpaid and work less hours, etc. But part of the basic structures about unions is the grievance procedure, right? And and it doesn't, and that's the whole reason what the unions often exist, isn't it, Angela?
Yep. So I mean, this is like the kind of thing where yeah, and people have to understand what their legal rights are, and also when someone's violating, they have to know that they're violating, and then what can happen to them if they continue to violate.
Yeah.
Right.
And one of the important factors to also consider, we just talked about union rules. Occupation health and safety laws apply equally to unionized workplaces and non-unionized workplaces.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and it's
compensation. There is a provision of workers' compensation. So if you're sitting there in a workplace and your colleagues are harassing you to a point where you're becoming sick or disabled, there is a possibility where you may have to go through WSIB, right? Because that's also an equivalent to a workplace injury. And then there is some provisions about under what grounds there may be a right to sue your workplace. Right?
Yeah.
So there are questions about that too, because I remember I was dealing with a case one time where I was coaching on it there, and there was a lawyer who I was working with on a case, and they wanted to make sure that they were following the directives properly. So I did that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on from occupational health and safety to one of the ways in which you can resolve your workplace dispute, and that is through mediation.
Yeah. Many times there's just people who have a dispute with one another because somebody found out that somebody who's worked the same length of time as they did and they had the same job, but that person's making $10,000 more a year than they are.
Yeah.
And they're not too happy, and they just think somebody is Browne.
I'm sorry, how did you read my mind? That was exactly what I was going to say. I did a workplace mediation exactly for that particular reason. We're talking about staff whose salaries were individually negotiated. So normally you don't know, Mary doesn't know what John is earning, but Mary discovered that she was earning, actually it was about £10,000 less than John was earning, and she was always accusing the boss of being being sexist, etc. But in fact, actually, it wasn't the current boss, wasn't even the person who negotiated the salaries, all the salaries were negotiated at employment time, and she'd asked for essentially 10,000 less than he had asked for.
Yep. And I think what needs to be done is a periodic review, right, where salaries are reviewed on a periodic basis. I developed a system for that before,
Yeah.
for an agency where there was about 50 workers, and
Like,
some workers that were in different groups, like different bargaining groups, and we put them into classifications, and depending on how long they worked and how high the level their job was, there was a scale that we put on it, compensatory.
that was essentially part of the mediation that I managed. That there was obviously you couldn't take away the John's kind of salary, and you could normally you could increase Mary's salary by 10,000 to include.
You usually increase from the bottom.
But the part of the problem lay is that what would you do with any other people, and how would you deal with this in future?
Yeah, this is why a salary review is probably the most thing. An equal pay for work of equal value still applies in some workplaces.
Well, and part of the problem lay in that basically when they were brought on board at different times, and they individually negotiated their own salary. But at the end of the day, they still ended up that the employer recognized that, hey, we've got really essentially a bracket of workers, all of and they named about a dozen workers that were all essentially doing the same type of role, same value role.
Yeah. Yeah, because this is what they call it. Like women always get into the pink collar ghettos, and the males, like, I think what generally happens is not a form of sexism, but many times women are a little nervous about negotiating a high salary when a man would go in and negotiate a higher salary.
Yeah, because the guy,
some people are. I would go in and I say, look, my minimum wage is, so I give an $82,000 a year salary,
Well, and a lot of men will go in and say, hey, I'm currently doing 82, I've currently got a job at 82. I'm looking for 88 or something like that.
Exactly. Or I might be doing something like that to see if I can get a boost. Because I really like to get a boost, because it looks like the new position includes a few more responsibilities. And you require some additional skills. So this is like how I would do it. But as I said, not everybody knows how to negotiate their own salary.
Yeah. All right. So essentially, one of the first priorities is to mediate, if possible.
Yeah.
When you've got a dispute, and there's so many options for mediation. You talk about, both parties need to be leaving with their chin to the floor. In this situation, I felt that both parties, all three parties essentially went out with. The only person who went the chin to the floor was the employer, because both the other two, everybody essentially that had the same value job got the same, would end up within 3 months on the same rate.
They all had a boost except for the ones that were at the top.
Yeah.
All
right. Okay. So moving on, human rights complaints. That's another area of complaint. We just discussed one there that was essentially if it's human rights complaints, it involves the Schedule 15. Sorry, the Section 15 rules about what makes the protected grounds.
Yeah, like there's, like say for instance, if there are protected grounds that are being violated, whether it's employment and contracts, if you're dealing with contract workers or union contracts, there's different things that all apply, and these things are covered under the Human Rights Code.
Yeah. And the human rights complaint can be taken against any employer, basically.
Yeah. Law firms are very, very, very traditional. It's like we belong to a over 250-year organization, and these law firms, especially the big ones, like who is usually the partners?
Yeah. Well, especially if you're developing from a 200-year-old partnership, so you've got, it's kind of McDuncan, and Dougal.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is one of the things people have to consider around partnership is if this is something that women like, what does it take to become a partner? Does it take people to beat themselves up and work 80-hour weeks and so forth to get there? And of
Only
course,
80-hour weeks. Only 80-hour weeks.
yeah, prejudices against women because women are generally the
Yeah.
ones who are responsible for domestic duties at home,
Yeah.
and they really can't do the 80-hour weeks as much as
Yeah.
the men can.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Okay. So then the other thing to be considered also here is there's another area which you can go to court, whether it's small claims court matters or superior court matters. You can still use. There's an option for going to court.
Yep,
Right?
there was recently a case where there was a female black lawyer who sued Gowlings successfully. Right?
Okay.
And this was a very long case. Right? But this is what happens sometimes if they have an issue of any kind of bullying, harassment, racism, sexism, that sort
Yeah.
of thing. And then
Yeah.
they can prove it. They have to prove it. Hey, it's not a case they say, oh, they don't want to pay me because I'm a woman.
Yeah.
Hey. Yeah, but there are cases like that even today in 2026, which is
Yeah.
sad because I think people should have learned by now, but unfortunately, a lot of these things they don't. So this is why a lot of people end up running their own businesses or starting their own businesses because they've been discriminated against for too long.
Yeah. Well, that's always a motive, of course, to start your own business. Nobody else understands me, so I'm going to go out and do my thing myself.
Yeah.
Trouble is, if nobody understands you and you go out and do your thing yourself, do you think you're going to sell to them?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So you have to be very careful. You really have to have the type of personality to do things yourself. Like you can't be somebody who is a bully. You can't be somebody who gets angry, is or hair-triggered temper. You have to also be able to negotiate with someone, because you're with another person and you have to treat with them as an equal.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And just to remind everybody, we've been talking about conflict within the workplace. And okay, so let us hit the final topic of the day, which is police involvement.
Oh my God, this is when it gets bad.
So basically,
workplace shootings, like you hear the expression "going postal."
Yeah.
Where somebody goes into the workplace and they just shoot everybody that they see and see what happens because I don't know, maybe something blew up at work or maybe they just blew up, period.
Yeah.
But it's a thing that sometimes happens. Fortunately, not as often as people think, but it does happen. And I think that this has to be looked at. And if somebody is a threat, there could be a threat assessment, particularly if there's somebody who's acting very verbose and their personality changed and they're not the usual self, things like that in the workplace. And then there's other things too. If somebody's committing a crime, right, because they're trying to get back at somebody at the workplace, they're like fraud, theft, assault. Or I'm going to go out and flatten everybody's tires, whatever it is, yeah, stuff like that. Like, believe me, there are people out there who think that way and they think that that's okay to do.
Yeah.
And they don't understand these are not victimless crimes.
Well, there's a couple of places in the workplace where police may be involved. Right.
Mm-hmm.
One situation is, for example, when you've got a trouble client,
Mm-hmm.
right, or maybe thefts, for example, if you're in a retail store, Although, unfortunately, the police have a bad reputation of responding in that situation.
Yeah.
But threats against members of staff are taken very seriously, especially if you get a voicemail that says, yada, 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 I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. Or did you know that there's a bomb I planted behind the toilet in your washroom?
Yeah.
Things like that, so particularly you're not sure, if you've got a building there with people and several washrooms and somebody starts saying something like that, so you want to make sure and you have to be safe. So you have to bring the police in and they bring their sniffer dogs in and see if there is any bombs.
Right. Actually, in that sort of scenario, most of the time you will be gone. You'll be out, outside because the alarm will be set off.
Yeah. They have everybody out. They don't even say what's going on because they don't want people to get all panicky.
Yeah.
And then there's things like where somebody gets into a fight,
right?
Where it just gets into a big physical fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's been physical fights in workplaces, and that's it. And I say, okay, you, and you. Goodbye. Pack up your bags and go.
It can happen, and that's the worst of circumstances.
Yeah, and then they get arrested too, because in addition to that, they also can get charged for assault.
Exactly. And for example, the sort of things that police can be called in for: thefts, violence, harassment,
fraud,
especially if there is physical evidence like cameras showing, the action.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why I think cameras are needed in workplaces, especially in areas where there could be some susceptibility.
Yep. Okay.
And
all right.
Because you don't want to have that type of thing going on. Like if you have valuables, like say if you run a jewelry store, right? You want to make sure you're monitoring people who are in there, working in there, or who go in there.
Yeah. Okay. So our theme today has been conflict within the workplace, and it's been great having you along. And just wanted to let you know that, so if you need to contact Spin Legal, you can do so on 905-688-5. Sorry, if you want to contact Invictus Legal, you can do so on 905-688-5598. Email Angela with Angela@weareinvictus.legal, myself with Peter@weareinvictus.legal, or go to our website, weareinvictus.legal. And then probably the most important thing you need to understand from today is
that what you heard today on Spin Legal, whether it's on this show or others in a series, this is not legal advice. If you need specific legal advice applying to your situation, whether it's this type of thing or whether it's something else, contact a paralegal or a lawyer. Okay? We'd certainly like you to contact Invictus, to discuss your situation. But do seek legal advice, because this is not legal advice. And don't go to Facebook University or Google Scholarship.
All right. And if you need, and as you say, and we will be back next week, 6 o'clock Tuesday, and we'll enjoy seeing you. All right.